Good morning, team. So, part 2 of the thyroid module, I guess we can call it. Gosh, sound like a professor, don't I? I'm going to try and keep this a little shorter than the last one. I've got 26 minutes until I need to leave the house. So, oh fuck, I did have 26 minutes, now I've got 24. So I'm going to try and race through this, giving detail, but not the usual nerdy Kyle shit that ends up happening. So I'm going to try and keep this nice and basic for everyone to understand, as I think if I go into too much detail, it's going to be a case of like, what the fuck are you going on, mate? Please just pipe down. So yeah, I'm going to run through, obviously, part 1. If you haven't watched it, please go back and watch it. Part 2, I'm going to cover medication, how to manage, how to fix, and all that sort of stuff. So medication, symptoms, how to manage, how to fix, blood tests, all that stuff. So yeah, again, like I've previously mentioned, sadly, in the Western world, for whatever reason it is, when it comes to medicating the thyroid, whether it be we don't fully understand how the thyroid works, or we don't use our brains, or Big Pharma makes more money from us this way, I don't know which way it is. I'm not going to comment on it, as it's not relevant. However, when we look at medication, I know there's a ton of you that are on T4 medication for hypothyroidism, all that stuff. I don't know why I said all that stuff. Hypothyroidism. When we look at what actually gets prescribed, it is always levothyroxine. There is a couple, I don't know where in the world do it. I think if you go to like the Middle East, Iran, maybe even Dubai, they might do this as well. They do actually use a combo of T4 and T3. It's called something like what is it called? The medication is called like something armor. I'm gonna get it up. And that is actually a combo. And it is usually run at, I think, what is it called? I can't find it, can I? Brilliant. But anyway, it's called something armor. Someone else can search it up and find the name. But yeah, I believe in like Iran, that is where it's produced. And when we look at what they're doing, I don't know if it's because we don't understand it properly, or if we're just ignorant to the fact that we think this can fix the issue. But when we look at obviously how the thyroid works, we know that T4 needs to be converted to T3 to have a healthy metabolism. So putting more T4 into a body that's potentially already sufficient in T4 or sufficient in T3 isn't going to do much. For example, because the NHS only test TSH and T4, we could have low levels of T4, and I've actually got some blood work to show you this exactly. Jamie, I hope you don't mind me showing. Well, it's too late anyway. But if I show you these bloods, Jamie, if we look to him, would be not hypothyroid, but he would be not hypo, but he would be relatively close to what we would call low thyroid. And if we look at it, would he potentially get medicated? I don't think at this level he would, but if his thyroid continues to decline based on the T4 levels that we were seeing, he would then be put on thyroid medication, which when we then see the rest of his I'm not going to be able to get it over, am I? When we then look at the rest of his stuff, we can actually see that his thyroid is very, very, very healthy. So if we look at it here, so his T4 is just above range. Ideally, when we're looking at T4, we want it anywhere between that 17 to 22 range. As you can see, his is at 13.2. But then if we look at his T3, it's at 5.1, which to be honest is perfectly in range. We want that again anywhere over 3.5 is a good spot for it to be in. So this is why the Western way of testing is so stupid, because if we looked at that, we would look at him and I'd be like, okay, we need to really do some things to try and get the thyroid in a better position, to try and get it healthier. You know, you're eating plenty of carbs, you're in a surplus, you're not in a position of high stress, low calories, high output, which we can sometimes experience kind of those hypothyroid activities going on. So this is why there is a huge gap in what is done, because if this was medicated, say if his T3 was exactly where it is now, but his T4 was at 11, they would medicate him for that. What that would then likely do is that would then likely push his T3 up over the range. Again, thyroid medication wise, the measurement is usually around 0.2 kilos, no, 0.2 micrograms per kilo of body weight. So for Jamie's around 90 kilos, he'd be looking at about 175 is probably where they would put him on. That would take him up to the top range of T4 for sure. But if he's still converting at the rate that he is converting from the T4 to the T3 now, that would probably most likely put his T3 somewhere up around like 7.5 or 8. So that then leads from someone who was on paper, from the doctor's point of view, hypothyroid, to then being hyperthyroid, which is why medicating with T4 alone is very, 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 very silly, especially when we're looking at what the doctors actually do look at, and they only look at half of the picture. So if we are medicated by this, I would, if budget does allow, guys, if anyone is on T4, I would always recommend you go and actually get a full thyroid panel. If you want somewhere to go, a couple places you can go. You can either go to Hill Labs, Kyle 10 for discount, or you can go and use something like MediChecks as well, and they will do a full thyroid panel. So it'll be TSH, T4, T3, and you'll probably get some thyroid antibodies tested with that as well. Again, NHS, I don't think that I've ever seen them test any antibodies. So if they're not testing antibodies, how do we know if there's an autoimmune disease going on, or how do we know what is going on versus getting full detail? So pretty much, if you actually think about it, the doctor's just stabbing in the dark, and I mean, I think we can all agree. The doctors don't sound like, some of the time, they have a clue in what he's doing. They just think, oh, more medication, I'll fix it. They don't actually look at, okay, well, why is this going on? What has changed in the circumstances? What has changed in the person's lifestyle? Which is why taking a holistic approach and trying to find the root cause and fixing that is always better than trusting your GP. You are just a paycheck to them, unfortunately. Whereas me, I want to help you. I want to make you get healthy, and that is always the goal. So yeah, symptoms. I think we all know what the symptoms are. So high thyroid, weight loss, rapid or irregular heartbeats, anxiety, feeling like heat, an intolerance to heat. So you might find that you just feel really hot all the time. I've actually taken myself very stupidly up to hyperthyroid when I was bodybuilding, and it doesn't feel fucking good. You're sweating all day, and you can never really regulate temperature. We'll also most likely see either diarrhea or frequently soft stools, fatigue, sleep disturbances like insomnia. Obviously, if we've got irregular heartbeat, we've got high heart rate, we've probably not been able to get into a rested and digested state. So we need to look at what can we do to bring down that stress. So things we can do if we're looking at, if we've got sleep disturbances or we've got insomnia or things like that. L-theanine is a great one. And then magnesium glycinate or biglycinate in the evening. They are fantastic for helping regulate the nervous system, getting us into a calm state, and actually helping with our sleep as well. Again, low thyroid, completely the opposite to high. So unexpected or unexplainable weight gain, fatigue, sluggishness, constant oh my god, I just want to sleep, low mood, cold tolerance. So we will find that we pretty much can never ever get warm, dry skin, cracks in the skin, thin hair. Maybe I had hypothyroidism at one point. We'll often also see a puffiness in the face. Why it happens, I don't know, but you will sometimes see people that have got hypothyroidism. They might be relatively lean on their body, but there's just a bloat and an inflammation that's held in the face. Memory problems, again, if we're low thyroid, we're feeling low mood, we're probably not going to have the best ability to function in day-to-day life. Also going to feel super fatigued all the time. So regardless of how much sleep you get, you're probably never going to get to the point where you feel like you're fully rested. And then ladies, you are most likely going to experience either extremely heavy and uncomfortable periods, or we are most likely going to kind of miss the menstrual cycle here and there. So if you are experiencing any of these signs, please do get your thyroid checked. It's not something that you want to live with. And make sure that you're also checking your body temperatures. This is another way in which we can kind of pick up, is the thyroid function as it should be. How we manage. So this could be a whole module in itself, and this could be about 35 minutes of me talking. But how we manage it, every person's case and every person's symptomology is different. So it's about finding the cause, addressing the cause, and actually fixing the root issue. But a couple of places that a lot of people can start with is, one, bringing down stress. So like I said, magnesium, L-theanine, ashwagandha even. They're all things that will help with bringing down stress and make sure the body kind of gets into that rested state, so that when we wake up, the thyroid is actually functioning as it should. Another couple of things we can always look at: iodine. If we don't have sufficient iodine, you will be hypothyroid. That is a fact. Selenium, again, it helps with regulating of the thyroid and activation of T4 and then conversion into T3. Zinc is, to be honest, zinc is something that I think everyone should take. Especially if you use anabolics, we should all be using zinc. As it is one of those DNA, mRNA expression, all that stuff. I'm just saying big words, it sounds super smart really, aren't I? But basically zinc is a powerhouse in terms of the things that it does within the body. And in terms of like growth of cells, regeneration of cells. We'll leave it at that. Vitamin D, again, it actually has been shown to help reduce the likelihood of these antibodies of, Graves or Hashimoto's popping up. So make sure we're sufficient in vitamin D as well is super, super, super helpful. Second thing we can also look at is fixing the gut. I don't think I've ever seen anyone with great gut health that has poor thyroid in general. I don't think it exists. So if you have low body temperatures, you probably have some gut dysbiosis or leaky gut or gut issues in general, whether it be diarrhea, constipation, just leaky gut in terms of nutrients or bacteria seeping into the bloodstream. There's something that's going on that needs to be fixed. If we want the gut health protocol, that might be something that I maybe do as a next module, is gut health, how to optimize. That's pretty fucking interesting. And we can all have better gut health. So yeah, looking at improving that, and then again making sure that our liver is functioning properly. Like I said in the last one, 80% of our T3 is converted within organs. So if we have issues with our organs, guess what happens? We don't get the conversion of T4 to T3. We then don't have a healthy metabolism. So yeah, that is that. Liver is one of those where it is involved in, I think, 1200 processes within the body. So people just think, the liver just regulates blood glucose and pumps out and stores glycogen and stores fructose. The liver is involved in so much more. So if we don't have a healthy liver, or we have impaired liver function, again, we will likely have some kind of metabolic dysfunction as well. So how do we fix? As I mentioned on the last slide, fix the gut. Make sure we're getting sufficient minerals, and then making sure we're also getting sufficient carbohydrates in. Anywhere kind of sub 100 grams of carbohydrates, we're probably going to see that there is a down regulation in terms of conversion from T4 to T3. So this is where, if we're in prolonged diet phases, or we're in the state of lean, we're getting pretty lean, this is where refeeds serve benefit over multiple days. One, to help with boosting the metabolism, converting more T4 to T3. So they are needed. Like people that think they can just consistently diet and prolong diet for 6 months at a time without any periods of high carbohydrates, you're bloody stupid. Which is why I'll also say, Neil, when we have refeed days or off-plan meals, we try and focus the majority of the majority of the additional calories around carbohydrates, because that is what is going to help with actually boosting the metabolism. And again, we're probably looking at sort of 48 to 72 hours in terms of need of extra carbs to see the body actually have some upregulation of metabolism. Again, we're also going to get stress hormone drop as well when that does happen, which, if we're less stressed, better thyroid output. So you can kind of see how everything kind of works in unison here. If one thing is out, 10 other things are out. If everything is in, the body moves so smooth. So yeah, that is that. Blood tests, I'm going to keep this nice and short. If you get a blood test with the NHS, it will cover part of it. It doesn't cover the full picture. If we want a full blood test, we want to try and get TSH, T4, T3. If we're thinking we might have hypothyroidism, TPOAB, that is thyroid peroxide antibodies. And then if it's hypothyroid, then we want to test thyroglobulin antibodies. And that'll give us everything we need in terms of seeing what we have wrong, not wrong, or if we're perfect. Hope that helps. Any questions, please do shoot them over, because I haven't had any questions, so I'm just going to keep talking my shit that I enjoy talking about. And have an amazing day, have an amazing week. Catch you all soon.